Welcome to How to Retail. I'm Greg Harford from Retail NZ, and I'm here with Joe Cunningham, who all the way from Singapore is Visa's Head of Risk for Asia Pacific. Welcome, Joe. Great to have you here in New Zealand.
Thank you very much, Greg. Pleasure to be here.
Today, we're going to be talking about Visa's new security roadmap that's just been launched and what that means for New Zealand businesses and New Zealand customers. So, Joe, do you want to give us a bit of an overview of the roadmap and what it means?
Of course. So, the way we look at it, the pandemic has driven a massive change in behaviour of New Zealanders, and of course has driven a massive change in the needs and operations of New Zealand businesses. And we think these changes are permanent. We don't think New Zealanders are going to go back to the pre-pandemic ways of shopping and behaving in a commerce environment. And as a result, we need to give some guidance to the industry as to how to continue to protect the sensitive information that flows across the ecosystem, how the businesses can continue to protect the trust that has been built up by New Zealanders in digital commerce. And of course, there are aspects of this that are forced upon us because of the changes in the way fraudsters are behaving post-pandemic as well.
So, Joe, with the threat landscape evolving continuously, and we've seen a lot of change, a lot of challenges in terms of scams and hackings and so forth over recent times, what are the new security challenges that you think businesses need to be focused on?
Yeah, so I would give you one example of something that has changed just recently. So we see the advent of what we call enumeration attacks. These are attacks perpetuated by fraudsters where they are attempting to basically guess cardholder information, whether it's the 16-digit card number, whether it's the expiry date, or that brilliant CVV number on the back of your card. And they use very sophisticated technology to basically guess these things. In order to do that, they need to take over technology devices, and they need to send and spread large numbers of these transactions across the network. This is massively disruptive, and to your point earlier, can actually go some way to eroding trust that New Zealanders have built up in digital commerce. So we think it's very, very important that businesses have a guide as to how to help protect themselves from these enumeration attacks.
So fraud can obviously have a big impact on consumer trust in businesses and indeed in the payments system. What is Visa doing to help address some of these challenges?
So one of the things in our security roadmap is a set of solutions and recommendations for businesses to protect themselves so as to avoid being a source of these enumeration attacks. Very simply put, we are asking for New Zealand businesses to think about introducing solutions on their side, solutions which are easy for humans to interact with, but difficult for bots, difficult for automation, difficult for computers.
So what sort of controls are we talking about here?
So an example would be an introduction of what we call anti-bot technology. You might be familiar with something as simple as what's called a CAPTCHA at the merchant checkout page, where the consumer is asked to identify something as simple as find me a motorcycle in this image. Something easy for a consumer, but very, very difficult to automate. So we believe this will stem the tide of enumeration attacks coming into the system and disrupting digital commerce in New Zealand.
Yeah. So there's obviously some steps that retailers and other businesses can take to help protect themselves, but what else is in the security roadmap that we need to be thinking about?
Yeah, so if I was to pick sort of two very, very simple things, the most important, in my opinion, is to, over time, our vision is to remove sensitive cardholder consumer information from the system entirely. So no more 16-digit card numbers being stored at merchant locations, at gateways, at processors. Large stores of 16-digit numbers, we call them PANs, attract potential data compromises. Over time, we hope that these will be removed and replaced with what we call tokens. Tokens are very powerful, they are incredibly innovative, they are worthless if stolen. So one of the core pillars of our security roadmap for New Zealand, just like the security roadmaps in other markets, is to encourage the adoption of tokenization. The second thing I would suggest, and is as laid out in the security roadmap as well, is the ongoing adoption of good data security practices. So for many years, Visa has been encouraging the adoption of what we call PCI DSS, a data security standard used worldwide by every one of our clients. When the situation arises where sensitive data needs to be stored, we expect and we hold our clients accountable for protecting it. And that's an incredibly important aspect of the security roadmap as well.
So that's a really good point about responsibility, though, isn't it? Because there's things that businesses need to do to protect themselves, but there's also things consumers should be thinking about. So there's a kind of shared responsibility. Is that right?
That's absolutely correct. In fact, one of the pillars of our security strategy indeed says that we should be enabling consumers to be part of the answer. So some of our clients around the world, and some clients here in New Zealand indeed, have implemented transaction controls. It actually puts the power in the hand of consumers, usually through fairly sophisticated features in mobile banking apps, where consumers have the ability to turn on and turn off features of their Visa card. And we think that's a wonderful innovation. We think cardholders, we know cardholders around the world enjoy that sense of control, that sense of power, the sense of responsibility. And in fact, it goes a long way to identifying early if and when there are issues with data security.
So what kind of actions and controls are we talking about here?
I was going to say this is something that's constantly evolving, and it varies fairly significantly across the globe. Whether security is the first or second or third most important factor is usually comes down to cultural norms and differences from society to society. What we do, though, about New Zealanders are that they think security is incredibly important. And our research shows that somewhere in the order of, I think, 56% of New Zealand consumers have at some point in time abandoned a shopping experience, abandoned the shopping cart online for fear of security, for fear of losing sensitive data. So it's incredibly important to New Zealanders. It's incredibly important to our clients, the financial institutions here in New Zealand, and of course it's incredibly important to Visa.
And so, with those consumer concerns in mind, what are the big key messages that you want businesses to be taking away from the security roadmap?
What we're now seeing is small businesses, medium-sized businesses thriving online, and that's what we want to see and encourage and support into the future. First and foremost, they need to educate themselves. Educate themselves on what the threats are, educate themselves on what they need to do in order to mitigate the chances that they become victims of cyber attacks. Second of all, most of the time New Zealand businesses are not doing this on their own. They have very important decisions to make in terms of the choice of payment providers, security solutions, et cetera, et cetera. The third thing is they need to ensure that when incidents occur, when bad things happen, that they have an incident response plan, call it crisis management, call it disaster recovery, an incident response plan that gives them the confidence that they can react quickly and safely and in a measured way when incidents do occur.
So Joe, thank you very much for being here in New Zealand and sharing your insights with us. Really good to get an understanding of the security roadmap and some of the steps that businesses can be taking to help protect themselves and their consumers. And obviously for more detail, we can check out the roadmap document itself on the website. And great to have you here.
A great pleasure. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed today.
Thank you.